Good evening, Bible study students. Welcome to Wednesday Bible study. We're continuing on with Israel's troubles in paradise tonight, part 3, trouble with the Midianites. I could have well called this lesson trouble with cousins, because the Midianites are cousins. In a remote way, they're cousins with Israel. The Midianites also came from Abraham.
You wrapped around the cable.
The Midianites also came from Abraham, but they were with not his wife, but one of Abraham's concubines. And so we're going to read about that tonight and how the Midianite family was separated from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob's lineage. So it could have been called trouble with cousins, but it's not. It's trouble with Midianites. So in the Bible, we have two major events where the Midianites and Israel had conflicts, and the trouble was caused by the Midianites for Israel. So we're going to read those two stories tonight. One is in Numbers chapter 22. It's when Moses is about to lead them into the promised land. And then the second story is after Joshua dies and they're in the promised land and they have another episode of trouble with the Midianites. So they're both very good, interesting stories. The Midianites repeatedly invaded Israel during this second event, the second problem or trouble that Israel had with them. They would come in at harvest time, they would raid the crops, they would take what they will, and then they left. And they actually left Israel hiding in caves when they came in to do these raids. So Israel had no pushback against them. They had seemingly no defense. They were just sitting there with their crops that they had been working on for months and months. And if you have a garden and some pest or some animal or something destroys it right before you're getting ready to harvest it, it's so disappointing. Has it ever happened to you? Yeah, almost every gardener has that happen at one time or another. If you stick with it, you do it several seasons, something's going to happen. Either it's not going to rain or some bug is going to find your yard, or it's always something. Jackie and I have been gardening I've been gardening since before I met her, which is 14 years ago. And every once in a while we have a good year. But oh my goodness, the effort and the time and the money we've put into growing food, it's never paid off. Not at all. Never. But imagine if it was people coming in doing that to you. Every year when your crops were ready, here comes this horde of Midianites, and they come in and they just strip everything. You're helpless. You can't do anything. The Midianites in this second episode have a huge army. It might be the biggest army that we've seen so far, or at least the biggest number that we've seen for an army. I don't know how many Pharaoh had, but you're going to see an astronomical number in the army of the Midianites tonight. And so we'll talk about that. And that just so happens to be the story of Gideon and his 300. 300. If you remember the story, well, we're going to go over a little bit of it tonight. We're not going to cover the main part of the story. We covered it in the adult Bible class. But the main part of the story you've probably heard and you're familiar with. But we're going to cover the pre-story and the post-story, because that's really where Israel has the problem with the Midianites. The Gideon part is the good part where Israel overcomes. But we're studying about the troubles that Israel had with Midian. So we're going to cover that tonight. That's in their second conflict. This second conflict also happened in the book of Judges when Israel is actively riding their sin cycle. So if you've been with us in the adult Bible class or you've been paying attention on Wednesday night, you know that Israel in the book of Judges goes through this cycle of being blessed. Then they fall into idolatry. Then they're cursed. Then they cry out to the Lord. Then he delivers them and they're blessed again. So this second episode with Midian happens during that time. The first episode with Midian happens right before they go into the promised land. So it was close enough that I could include it in Troubles in Paradise. All right, so you ready to go? Here we go. Let's read our it's not a key scripture. I should really come up with a term for this. Our thematic scriptures for this series. The Lord foretold Moses that Israel would have trouble once they got into the promised land. The Lord said to Moses, "Behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers, and this people," talking about Israel, "will arise and play the prostitute." This is a double entendre. Because, here we go. Play the prostitute has two meanings. It means they're going to be unfaithful to the Lord, as if a spouse were to go out and engage with a prostitute. But they were literally using prostitutes too. So it's a dual meaning. They're cheating on the Lord with a prostitute, but it's really real prostitutes too. They're going to these idol temples where the idol prophetesses are. That's a good name for them, right? Prophetesses? Prophetesses / prostitutes. And so Israel is going there, and they are bowing down and worshiping these foreign gods, and they're abandoning the Lord. It's not just that they're doing this, but at the same time they're abandoning the Lord, and they're breaking his covenant. And then my anger will be kindled against them on that day. The Lord is saying this to Moses. I will abandon them. But who abandoned who first? They will abandon me, then I will abandon them. He's not the initiator of the abandonment. There used to be a song when I was growing up that said, if you don't feel close to God, anybody know it? Guess who moved? It was you. If you're not close to God, it's because you moved away from him. He didn't move away from you. He does not initiate this abandonment. They initiate the abandonment. It goes with us. It's the same lesson for us today. Don't forget, when we're studying these Old Testament stories, we're looking for several things. We're looking for, how does the Lord treat people? Okay, because we're finding out in these stories how the Lord treats people. And we're looking for good examples to follow. And we're looking for bad examples to avoid. So don't forget that. So this is the same way. The Lord has not changed. He still treats us this way. When we do these things in purple, he does these things in watermelon. Okay? I will abandon them, hide my face from them. That means when they pray, he doesn't answer. He's hiding from them. They will be consumed. Many evils and troubles will find them. So the Lord predicted many troubles. Is this still too light?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Better?
Better.
All right. There's just a fine line there between reading and sleeping. Trying to balance that.
With that microphone.
Oh, it's loud.
I think that's going to keep us awake.
Okay, should I turn it down?
No.
Okay. Maybe I should back up a little bit. All right, so the Lord told Moses there's going to be trouble. So here's the birth of Midian, happened in Genesis 25. Now Abraham took another wife. This is after Sarah died. He took a wife named Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan. These are good baby names, those of you that still haven't decided. Midian, there's Midian, number 4. Ishbak, and Shua. So there's Midian. It's the son of Abraham and his second wife, or his subsequent wife. We're not sure that there weren't others, but Keturah. And a few verses later it says, now Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. Remember, he's the miracle boy that almost died when Abraham almost killed him because God told him to. And then the Lord said, no, don't do it at the last minute. But to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living, and he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. So Midian, I don't know that we hear about these other guys, but Midian certainly became a great nation. And so he's on the east side of Jordan. If you remember your map, if you don't have one, there's one up here. But they're on the east side of Jordan with the 2.5 tribes. Remember the 2.5 tribes? Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh. Well, they're not there yet because this is Genesis. So Wipe that. They will be. Who were the Midianites, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. They were descendants of Abraham through his wife Keturah. We just covered that. But Moses fled to the land of Midian after he killed the Egyptian. Remember, he killed the Egyptian. He was trying to defend one of the Hebrew workers. And it seems like he did it on purpose because the Bible says he looked this way and he looked that way before he did it. He was looking to see if anybody was going to notice. He killed that Egyptian. Pharaoh heard about it. I believe it says the next day they were talking about it. And Moses overheard it. He got scared to death. And he took off and he went to the land of Midian, these people that came from Abraham. And he was there for quite a while. And he married Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, who the Bible calls a Midianite priest. So, and I believe it says he's a priest of the Lord. So interesting that there were other branches of Abraham's family that knew the Lord, it seems like, but they just weren't part of the covenant portion of the family, which was Isaac. Okay, Isaac was the true son, and these others that came from Keturah were half related, but they didn't have the same mother. Their mother was not Sarah, so they were distant cousins. Prior to entering Canaan, the promised land, the Midianites joined with Moab. This is going to be our first occurrence of trouble with the Midianites tonight. They joined with Moab, who was the offspring of Lot and one of his daughters, and they seduced Israel into idolatry and sexual immorality. And this is the story of Baal at Peor. So we're going to cover that tonight. That's the first time that we have Midianites causing big problems with Israel. And as a result, the Lord commanded Moses to attack the Midianites, leading to a brutal judgment on the Midianites. But years later, in the promised land, several generations later, the Midianites began to raid Israel seasonally. This is when they were coming in to steal the crops. So this would be the second trouble that Israel had with the Midianites, destroying the crops and actually causing a famine. During this time, the Lord raised up Gideon. You know the Gideon, with just 300 men to defeat this massive Midianite army. And we just studied this in the adult Bible class. Jay taught it, and I don't recall him telling us the size of the Midianite army, but it was humongous. We're going to cover it tonight. I think he didn't cover it because it actually is stated in a later chapter than the battle and the things that Gideon did. So we'll read that tonight. It's astronomical. During this time, the Lord raised up Gideon with just 300 men, and the whole point of that was to show that it's the Lord's power that causes Israel to prevail. It's never their own power. And just to emphasize the point, the Lord cut down Gideon's forces like to almost nothing compared to what they were going up against. Wait till you see the numbers. I'm really building this up, aren't I? But it just got to me when I saw this, and I thought, oh, wow, that was really a lopsided battle. So, and then after this defeat, it seems like the Midianites left Israel alone. So there was really just these two incidents, once right before the promised land, before they entered, and then one a couple of generations afterward. They had this second incident, more trouble with Midianites, and it seems like that was all the trouble that they had. But this lesson, I'll show you at the end tonight, it flows directly into our next lesson. You may not have noticed this yet. This was not the lesson that was announced for tonight. Did anybody catch that? Well, I could just say anything and y'all would just go along with it. No, this was supposed to be trouble with Abimelech. Remember that one? And then I realized that, there's too much here about the Midianites to skip it. So I just snuck this one in there because I'm going to need more lessons eventually. So Midianites replaced Abimelech. But this story ties right into Abimelech. Let me just spoil a little bit of it for you. Abimelech is Gideon's son. Okay, so he's going to be next week. All right. I can't tell you any more right now. So after Moses kills the Egyptian. He flees into the land of Midian, and he finds his wife there. When Pharaoh heard about the matter, that is the matter that Moses had killed the taskmaster, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the presence of Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian. He settled there. He didn't go there just to hide for a little while. He sat down by a well. He moved there. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. Well, what do you know? And they came to draw water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And guess who was there? Moses, sitting down right by the well. Perfect place to meet people, right? Then the shepherds came and drove them away, drove the daughters away. But Moses stood up and he helped the daughters and he watered their flocks. And so they took him home to daddy. Oh, here it is. And Moses was willing to live with the man, that is the girl's father. And he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses. Then she gave birth to a son, and he named him Gershom, for he said, I've been a stranger in a foreign land. Moses knew that this was not his ultimate destination. He'd been there a while. I think he was there about 40 years. But he never assimilated into the Midianite community. He kept himself separate. He remembered that he was of the line of Isaac, the child of promise. He was not an offspring of Keturah, one of Abraham's other wives. He came from the promised child. Moses knew that he came from the promised child. So he said, I'm here, but I'm just a stranger, and I'm a foreigner, and these are not my people. And they weren't. And now, the Lord called Moses while he was in Midian, gave him this mandate to take his relatives, his family, the children of Israel, out of Egypt and bring them to the land of Canaan. We know it as the Promised Land. So after they come out, they go to the Promised Land. They get there in not very many months. It just didn't take them very many months to get there. But they get there and they find out that there's Canaanites in the land. Remember that from last week? Oh, the Canaanites. Not just the Canaanites, but the 6 other nations that were there that are also collectively called Canaanites. And not just the people are there, but they're there and they're in fortified cities. And that was really discouraging to Israel. And they said, how in the world are we going to go in there and defeat these people? And the answer was so simple. The answer was by the power of the Lord. That's it. That's the answer. That's how they were going to do it. But they missed that. They missed it. They thought it was all about them. But really, all of this story is about the Lord's story of bringing a Savior for all people. And they're participating in it, but it's not really all about them. The Lord's focused on them. The Lord's got a special light shining down on them, if you want to think of it like that. But as we've seen in all these stories, and we're going to continue to see through the Old Testament, they're just like us. In fact, they're no better than us. They might be worse than us. They're really bad. They cannot keep serving the Lord consistently, ever. It's really bad. This is the one thing that I have really gotten out of going through the Old Testament twice in the last 3.5, 4 years, is how they never really consistently served the Lord. It was in sections, but there were so many bad periods in between the periods where they served the Lord. And that should encourage us. That should encourage us that when we fail, when we make mistakes, when we do stupid things and we have to pay 7 years for it, or 10 years. Have you ever had one of those trials? I've had multiple 7-year trials. Multiple. I've had them overlap. Where I was in a bad situation for 7 to 10 years and I couldn't do anything about it except wait for the time to pass. And it did pass, thankfully. But it really all came down to mistakes that I made, bad decisions I made. I must not have prayed enough about my decisions, but I'm pretty aware of that now. So I've learned a few things, hopefully, And big decisions, we need to make big prayer, right? We always need to go to the Lord and ask for direction when we're having to make big decisions, because things can really affect you for a long term, especially getting married. That's a big one. That can affect you for many, many years, more than 10 years even. It'll affect the rest of your life, or it could, possibly. So, make sure that we don't forget the Lord. We're going to cover that tonight. Israel forgot the Lord. What does that mean? It's not that they forgot his name. They forgot to include him in their decisions. They forgot to consult the Lord when they made choices. They thought it was all about them. So we cannot forget the Lord. We cannot forget to include the Lord in everything that we do, because we don't want to go down a wrong road. Sometimes wrong roads don't have any exits for many, many miles. Have you ever made one of those turns? When I used to travel for work up in the Northeast, sometimes you could get on a road and you could never get off. You have to go to the next town to turn around. So anyway, let's get back on the lesson. Moab and Midian. Now, this is interesting. This is the first incident with Midianites and Israel. But the story seems to focus on Moab. But Midian is in there. And then after the story, we find out that Midian was also a major player. But when you read it through the first time, it just briefly mentions Midian, and it seems like that Moab is the one that's causing the big problems. But later on, we're going to find out that Midian was a huge part of the problem as well. So this is Numbers 22. This is right before they go into the promised land. The sons of Israel journeyed on, and they camped in the plains of Moab. So they're in the area of Moab, beyond the Jordan, opposite Jericho. So Jericho's right across the Jordan River. As you remember, Jericho was their first stop in the promised land, their first big battle. So they're just across the river from Jericho. Now, Balak, he's going to be a major player here for the next few screens. Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. If you remember, there were two kings, Og and Sihon, that were Amorites that Israel had conquered. And this was a big deal. This is really their two biggest conquests since they came out of Egypt. And so that news traveled to the nations around there. And they heard, hey, there's this horde of people that came out of Egypt, and they're rolling through the land, and Og and Sihon, kings of the Amorites, couldn't stop them. So Moab was in great fear because of Israel, for they were numerous. So there was a lot of Israelites out there. And Moab was in dread of the sons of Israel. They had heard what they had done to Og and Sihon, king of the Amorites, and they were dreading when Israel would get there. And now Israel's there in the land of Moab. Moab said to the elders of Midian. So this is where they included Midian, the other nation. And it's going to seem like that Midian just kind of fades out of the story. But as I said, later on, we'll find out that Midian was very much involved. Moab said to the elders of Midian, now this horde will eat up all that is around us, as the ox eats up the grass of the field. So they said, Israel's going to come in, and they're going to destroy all of our farmland and our pasture land, and they're going to start taking our resources. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at the time. So they're going to try and enlist the assistance of this man of God. He is somewhat of a man of God. His name is Balaam. He is a type of a prophet. He's not part of Israel, but he has this gift. And it had to come from the Lord. I don't know where else it could come from. That when he blessed someone, they became blessed. And when he cursed someone, they were cursed. And so Balak of Moab went to hire Balaam and said, hey, we need your help. We need you to come and curse Israel. So he sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor at Pethor, which is near the Euphrates, in the land of the sons of his people, to call for him, saying, behold, a people came out of Egypt. Behold, they have covered the surface of the land, and they are living opposite me. So they were just right there by Moab. Now therefore, please come and curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I will be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed. So people knew about Balaam, that he had this gift. So they ask him, and now they're going to send elders of Moab and elders of Midian, and they're going to pay Balaam. They're going to give him some money to make sure that he does a good curse, okay, or a bad curse. I guess it'd be a bad curse, right? Okay. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian left with the fees of divination. That's their offerings to Balaam in their hands. And they came to Balaam and repeated Balak's words to him. And he said to them, spend the night here, and I will bring word back to you, just as the Lord may speak to me. And the leaders of Moab stayed with Balaam. Notice he uses the covenant name of the Lord Yahweh, or this representation of the Lord's name Yahweh. That's interesting because he's not part of Israel. But it seems from this that he knows this name that God revealed to Moses. It seems like Balaam knows the name. And the leaders of Moab stayed with Balaam. Then God came to Balaam, look at this, and said, who are these men with you? Isn't that funny? I thought that was hilarious. Why would God ask him, who are these men? Well, he wanted to hear Balaam give the answer. So Balaam said to God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent word to me, behold, there's a people who came out of Egypt, and they cover the surface of the land. Now come curse them for me. He's telling the Lord like the Lord didn't know any of this, right? He's repeating it word for word. Like, I guess that's good because the Lord asked him, so give all the information that you know. Come clean with the Lord. Don't hide anything. Perhaps I will be able to fight against them and drive them out. That's exactly what Balak had told Balaam. So he repeats this to the Lord. But God said to Balaam, do not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they're blessed. God said, no, that's Israel. They're blessed. They're blessed. So don't go curse them. So Balaam got up in the morning and he said to Balak's representatives, go back to your land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. And the representatives from Moab got up and went back to Balak, the king, and said, Balaam refused to come with us. So Balaam said, I can't curse them because the Lord won't let me, and the only power I have, apparently, is the power of the Lord to bless and curse. And the Lord said, don't do it. And so Balaam is going to obey the Lord. He said, I can't curse them if the Lord won't let me curse them. So now King Balak, he doesn't give up. He's going to beg. A king begging. How about that? Then Balak sent representatives once again, more numerous and more distinguished. He sent a higher level of people. More distinguished people than the previous group. They came to Balaam and said to him, this is what Balak the son of Zippor says, I beg you, let nothing keep you from coming to me, for I will indeed honor you richly. There's going to be more money. They've already given him the money of divination, but there's more. King Balak says, I've got more. I will do, look at this. I will do whatever. Never say that, right? We've already covered some people in the Bible that says, I will do whatever. Don't ever say that. I will do whatever you tell me. Please come then, curse this people for me. He's desperate. He's begging. He's offering money. He's basically offering whatever Balaam would come up with. Now, I don't know if he really meant that. Like, what if Balaam said, okay, I want to be king of Moab? I don't know. Maybe that would have worked. I don't know. We don't have to worry about that because it didn't happen. But Balaam replied to the servants of Balak, even if Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, either small or great, contrary to the command of the Lord my God. So he definitely sounds like he's a servant of the Lord there. Now, please, you also stay here tonight, and I will find out what else the Lord has to say. So this seems to be Balaam's pattern. At night or in the morning, he goes and talks to the Lord, and he gets his answers. Doesn't seem like he could just get them on the spot when he's talking to these people. He's got to go off. He's got to isolate himself, and he gets his answer from the Lord, and he comes back. And God came to Balaam at night again and said to him, if the men have come to call you, rise and go with them, but you shall do only the thing that I tell you. So basically, he's telling them the same thing, but he did say you can go with them, but you cannot curse them unless I tell you that you can curse them. So Balaam tells Balak how to entice Israel to sin. We're skipping over some of the story, but let me see. Let me tell you the rest of the story. It's right here. So after this, Balak goes to the king. I'm sorry. Let me back up here. Balaam goes to King Balak, okay? And he offers sacrifices to the Lord. And he tries to curse Israel, but when he opens his mouth and starts talking, only blessings come out. And Balak is angry. We're not going to read all this. I'm trying to save time, but Balaam says, let me try it again from a different location. So he goes to a different location where he can look down and see Israel. And he tries again. He opens his mouth and he's going to see what's going to come out, what the Lord's going to let him say, and he gives another blessing to Israel. And Balak is furious. He said, that's twice you blessed them. I'm paying you good money to curse them. You're blessing them. Balaam says, let me do it one more time, because you know third time's a charm, right? That's not in the Bible. It's just something we made up. But maybe Balaam had heard that, so he thought, okay, one more time just to make sure. Goes to another location, opens his mouth, tries to curse Israel, and only blessings can come out. And each time he's doing this, he's offering sacrifices to the Lord. It's a process. He's not like he just goes and opens his mouth. It's a whole setup. He sets up altars. He brings animals. He kills them. He offers them as sacrifices to the Lord each time. And each time he can only bless Israel. He tries 3 times. And Balak the king is furious now. He's paid this man, and all he's done is bless Israel 3 times. So now, I guess Balaam feels bad. And he says, well, I can't curse them, but I can tell you how to defeat them. And that's really all Balak wants, really. He wants to defeat Israel because he's afraid of them. He's afraid they're going to come over and take his land and do all kinds of damage. And so really they just want to defeat him. And Balaam says, hey, I don't have to curse Israel for you to win against them. All we have to do is get them to sin. And if we get them to sin enough, the Lord will curse them. And that was right. He was right about that. So you got to give him credit. It was an ingenious plan. It's odd that this seeming man of God, who is a prophet, he speaks for the Lord. But he's telling this Moabite king Balak how to trick Israel to get them to curse themselves. All right. And so he told Balak this is how to do it. And we're skipping on down to Numbers chapter 31. And this is Moses recounting the story. And Moses said to them, behold, they caused the sons of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to be unfaithful to the Lord in the matter of Peor. We're going to read about the Peor thing in just a minute. So that the plague took place among the congregation of the Lord. And then later on, look at this, Revelation, red letters, Jesus speaking, chapter 2, talking to one of the 7 churches, says, write to the angel of the church in Pergamum, thus says the one who has the sharp, double-edged sword, I know where you live, where Satan's throne is, yet you are holding on to my name and did not deny your faith in me, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death among you where Satan lives. But I have a few things against you, talking to this church in Pergamum. I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold to the teaching of Balaam. Same Balaam? Yep. Same Balaam. And look what he did. He taught Balak, that's the king of Moab, to place a stumbling block in front of the Israelites to eat meat sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. So even though the story that we were reading in the Old Testament doesn't really spell it out and say that Balaam showed Balak how to trick Israel and make them curse themselves, in the New Testament it's stated clearly here that Balaam taught Balak how to get Israel to basically commit spiritual suicide, how to get themselves cursed so that Balaam didn't have to curse them. All right, so back to our story. This is when Israel became cursed because of what Balaam did. While Israel remained at Shittim, the people began to commit infidelity with the daughters of Moab, for they invited the people to the sacrifice of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel became followers of Baal of Peor, and the Lord was angry. This is when they're camping right across the Jordan River from Jericho. They're ready to go in, and right before they're going into the promised land, we find out, oops, they're not ready yet. They're not ready to go into this land of Canaanites because they can't resist the idolatry and the prostitution that goes with it. They can't resist it right before the Lord gives them the promised land. And the Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people and execute them in broad daylight before the Lord, so that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you kill his men who have become followers of Baal of Peor. So Moses commanded the leaders to kill all the Israelites who had gone after these daughters. I'm sure they were really sweet daughters, right? Daughters of Moab. He said, kill all the men that have gone after these women, because they didn't just go after the women, they went after their gods too, and they bowed down to them. All right. And we've read this before, but let's read it again. It's so good. An Israelite brings a Midian woman. Now, this is the Midian woman. This is in the same incident. Brings a Midian woman into the camp of Israel. They're getting ready to go into the promised land. And some guy brings one of these Midian girls in there and takes him into the tent, and people saw it. Then behold, one of the sons of Israel came and brought to his relatives a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of the whole congregation of the sons of Israel. He didn't even make it a secret. He wasn't even embarrassed. This is very bold and brazen, because he's bringing one of these idolater women into the camp of Israel while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting because of what had happened, because of this curse and all these people that had just been killed by the leaders of Israel. And that's when this guy comes in and brings in a Midianite woman. When Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, so this is Aaron's grandson, Phinehas, when he saw it, he rose up from the midst of the congregation and took a spear in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the inner room of the tent and pierced both of them, the man and the woman, through the abdomen. Wow. And the plague on the sons of Israel was brought to a halt because he did that. But those who died from the plague were 24,000 in number. So that was a huge amount of people that died because of their unfaithfulness to the Lord right before they go into the promised land. And who got them to do it? It was Moab and Midian. Trouble with the Midianites. And look at this. The Lord rewards Phinehas and his descendants. This is interesting. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, has averted my wrath from the sons of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not destroy the sons of Israel in my jealousy. Therefore say, behold, I am giving him my covenant of peace, and it shall be for him and for his descendants after him a covenant of permanent priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the sons of Israel. So Phinehas was already a priest. He was Aaron's grandson, But the Lord said, him and his descendants, I'm going to give them a permanent priesthood, meaning their priesthood line will never be wiped out. But there were some priests who the Lord rejected. Eli is one of them. We're going to be talking about that Sunday morning. So don't forget to come Sunday morning in the adult Bible class. We're going to talk about young Samuel. Here's his call of the Lord, and he's working for Eli the priest. And Eli the priest's sons were evil, and the Lord cut off that priesthood line. And there were no more priests that came from Eli. So there were some of the priesthood that were cut off and did not continue. But the Lord's saying, Phinehas, he's going to continue permanently as a priest, he and his descendants, because he did this thing about spearing the man and the woman through the abdomen. Now the name of the dead man, look at this. They found out who it was, and they published these two people's names in the Bible. Forever and ever it will be known that this is the names of those two people. Name of the dead man of Israel who was killed with the Midianite woman was Zimri. Anybody know anybody named Zimri? No, it's a bad name. Don't use that one. Don't recycle that one. Leader of his father's household among the Simeonites, so he was of the tribe of Simeon. And the name of the Midianite woman, look at this, she wasn't just some cheap temple prostitute. This was a big deal. This woman had some clout.
Cosby.
Yes. First of all, her name was Cosby. So that has a bad ring to it. But she was the daughter of Zur, who was the head of the people of a father's household in Midian. So she was a prominent person. Her father was a head. He was a head guy in Midian. So it seems like, the Bible doesn't state this, but it seems like they sent this woman with the purpose of causing Israel to sin. She was a plant. She was an undercover agent. She was a secret weapon. It sounds like that's what they did. And they sent this woman down there right into the camp, and thank the Lord for Phinehas. He didn't let it continue. He stopped it before it could go much further, but a lot of damage had been done already. So now the Lord, after that happens, the Lord is going to tell Moses to attack the Midianites. Interesting, he doesn't tell them to attack the Moabites. And this is the part of the story where it seems like Moab initiated this thing, but now Moab is out of the picture, and it's really the Midianites that seem to be the ones that caused the most trouble. And they're the one that sent the woman into the tent with the Simeonite man. So the Lord spoke to Moses saying, be hostile to the Midianites and attack them, for they have been hostile to you with their tricks. It was a trick. They were trying to trick Israel into sinning, and it did work to an extent, with which they have deceived you in the matter of Peor. That's when the men went out, found the daughters of Moab, and bowed down to their gods. In the matter of Cosbi, there's her name again, Cosbi, the daughter of the leader of Midian. So she was somebody. She was the daughter of the leader of Midian, their sister, who was killed in the day of the plague because of Peor. So this indicates that she was sent to entice Israel to sin. So after this happened, the Lord told Moses to attack Midian, but he didn't do it right away. He took the second census in the book of Numbers. If you remember in the book of Numbers, there was an early census when they started on their 40-year journey, and there was a late census right before they went into the promised land. So after this Midianite thing happened, and 24,000 Israelites died because they were worshiping these gods, and they were with these women, the Lord tells Moses to attack Midian, but it doesn't happen immediately. Moses takes a census, and then he gives 4 chapters of laws. And this is a good example of what Larry had asked several months ago. Where are all of these laws of Moses? You know, there's supposed to be 613. Some guy counted them and said that's how many there are. And it's not clearly defined in the Bible, but that's a good close number, I think. But it's odd that right here in the middle of this story, between the time that the Lord told Moses to attack Midian and the time they actually did attack, Moses comes out with these 4 chapters of laws. It has nothing to do with this story. If you look at it, it's just laws about all kinds of things. One of the sections is laws about making vows. And I can't remember what the others are because I didn't study that. But I skipped over it because it didn't have to do with our story. But I just wanted to say that these laws of Moses are scattered throughout Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And here's some in the book of Numbers. So you might not expect that there would be laws in Numbers, but there are. And it's just in these groups of chapters that show up right in the middle of the narrative. And this is an example of that. So we're going from chapter 25 to 31 because we're skipping over those 4 chapters of laws. And so here again, the Lord reiterates to Moses, I want you to attack the Midianites because of what they did. This is in chapter 31. Then the Lord spoke to Moses saying, take vengeance on the Midianites for the sons of Israel. Afterward, you will be gathered to your people, meaning you're going to die, Moses. So Moses spoke to the people saying, arm men from among you for the war, so that you may go against Midian to execute the Lord's vengeance on Midian. You shall send 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel to the war. So 12,000 troops he's calling up. So they made war against Midian, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. And they killed every male. They killed the kings of Midian, along with the rest of those killed. Evi, Rechem, Zur, and Hur. Maybe they were twins. And Reba. Sounds like a woman, but maybe not. The 5 kings of Midian. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was the 5 kings. I missed that the whole time I was studying. That's the 5 kings right there. So I guess they were men. Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba. Kings. How did I miss that? That's why you got to read it more than once. They also killed Balaam, the son of Beor, with the sword. That was the one that tried 3 times to curse him and he couldn't. But he did tell Balak how to get Israel to sin and commit idolatry. And that worked. They couldn't be cursed, but they could certainly be tricked into going into idolatry. So I can see right now that we are not going to finish this Bible study tonight. So let's go ahead and finish this little portion, and then we're going to cover the rest of it next week. Okay with everybody? Okay, good. And we got 100% agreement on that. So, all right, so here we go. Oh, right here at the bottom. And the sons of Israel took captive the women of Midian and their little ones, and they plundered all their cattle, all their flocks, and all their property. So this is one of those instances where they gained a lot. A lot. This is a nation. Midian is a nation. They gained all the women that they could get from Midian and their children. They plundered all the cattle of Midian, all their flocks, and all their property. So this is a huge influx of wealth for Israel right before they go into the promised land, right before they cross over the Jordan. All right. So this is your Bible study to go. It's the summary for both lessons, but it won't hurt you to see some of this, and you get to see it again next week. So Israel is always victorious when they're obedient to the Lord. It doesn't matter who the enemy is. It doesn't matter if they've got iron chariots. Nothing else matters but their obedience to the Lord. They're 100% winners when they're obedient to the Lord. Always. Israel has no enemies that can overpower them unless they allow themselves to be overpowered by sin. That's where their power lies. Nobody can defeat them. They've got it going on with the Lord as long as they're obeying Him. It's 100% guarantee. It's the same with us. Thank you, Carolyn. I was hoping somebody would figure that out. It's the same with us. We can't be defeated when we're obeying the Lord. because he is undefeated and we'll be on his side. No enemy can overpower them. The only time they lose is when they are overpowered by sin. Okay, and this is about Gideon, and that's the part we did not cover, and did not cover, and did not cover, and did not cover. But look at this last one, because now we're going to have to push Abimelech back a week, but not to worry. We've got plenty of weeks. Gideon apparently became very rich. This is skipping over to the end of the story about Gideon. I did not know this until I studied for this lesson. You know, when you read the story of Gideon, which we're going to do next time, he was so reluctant. Remember, the Lord called him and he said, "Oh, Lord, I don't know. I'm from the smallest tribe. I'm from the smallest family. I'm just a little nobody. Sure, you got the right person. Just to make sure, let me do this fleece trick. Remember that? Put the fleece out. Fleece is wet. Ground is dry. And it was that way. And then he said, Lord, that was real good. But what if it was just a coinkydink? What if that was just a fluke? I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to put the fleece out. And this time, let's let the ground be wet and the fleece dry. And he gets up in the morning and it was just that way. And he still didn't believe, and the Lord gave him some inside information. He went down to the Midianite area, and he overheard them talking, saying how afraid they were of Gideon and Israel. And that's when he perked up, and he said, "Oh, maybe this is the Lord's will for my life." And so anyway, he went from very humble beginnings to, look at this, 72 sons. Did you know that? Did you know Gideon had 72 sons?
How many wives?
He had to have a lot of wives. But you know what? He was such a national hero after he defeated the Midianites. So we're going to cover that next week. But he was a superstar. He was like the Israel Idol. You know, American Idol. He was like the Israeli idol. He was the man in Israel. In fact, so he had a lot of women, consequently, a lot of sons, and one of them was this guy named Abimelech, who's going to cause more trouble in paradise. But now you've got to wait 2 weeks for that, because we got to do Gideon next week. So God bless you. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate everybody showing up. Good crowd. Go in peace.